Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gregtech Community Pack. In the last episode we really fortified down our final crafting solutions and research stations for the ZPM and UV age. This unlocked us the crystal processor mainframe, crystal chips, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Today we're going to use those UV circuits to make ourselves a massive circuit assembler, complete our final cheeky power upgrade, and make the funny pink clean room for some dastardly chemicals. This episode is going to complete the ZPM chapter, so if you're down for that, and down to see the final chapter next episode, hit like, subscribe, and follow along for more. Anyway, let's get into it with a little montage. Have a look at this. 264 bytes of storage and 72 coprocessors. AE2 shouldn't need to be upgraded anymore. I've been saying it for a while now, but I think we really are starting to get into the home stretch. The next step on our agenda is the Fusion Reactor Mk2. We've already got everything required to make this. I'm about to start scanning it as well. I'm just needing the Fusion Reactor Mark 1 for the Fusion Reactor Mark 2. And we can make everything. The thing that's going to take the longest time is these UHB ICs. Otherwise, the Fusion Reactor Mark 2 is almost identical to the Mark 1, it just needs Mark 2 casings and fusion coil blocks. Mark 2 casings just require some europium, an LUV field generator, obviously the fusion coil as well, and these ZPM voltage coils, which require europium. And since we have most of it on AutoCraft, we could probably just start requesting this stuff and see how we go. So we need 48 fusion casing Mark 2s. Can we request it? No, we can't. Oh my gosh, we actually just need to increase our buffer of epoxy resin, and nope, what's that? More nether star dust as well. Oh, more crystal chips. Nope. That's it. Alright, let's sort those buffer issues out and then we'll request. And another insanely expensive infrastructure project comes to an end. We finally have all the materials for the Fusion Reactor Mark 2. So let's place our controller down, make sure it's facing the right way. And I should be able to use the multi-block builder to just have this automatically build. I think I want that one more up actually. Make sure it's facing the right way. It is. By doing that. Alright, let's give this a go. Excuse me. Ah, it's tried to build... No? I'm confused. It seems to have taken the fusion glass, but... Oh, it's placed it all in weird spots. Alright, let's clean this up. All fixed up, all ready to go. Let's plug in the vanadium gallium cables, the applied energistics sections, and get to making ourselves some of the new materials that we've got access to. So let's start encoding the recipes. We're going to start with darmstadtium, which is our UV material. This one requires the Mark II, which we've just made, and it's ruthenium and arsenic. So we can just set the recipe here. And if we times this by 9, we can get to 1 ingot's worth, so 144. And we'll take that out. So we can cross these off our list. The next one we're going to make is americium, which is lutetium and chrome. So again, we want to be making these in ingots. And lutetium itself is a fusion product. It's made with silicon and lanthanum. So again, stacks of 3. Nice and simple. And the last one on our list is tritanium. And now I'll kind of explain how I use AE2 fluid crafting to get our fusion products. Because we already have a very expansive fluid system, I don't want our fusion products getting mixed in with all this and potentially causing some issues. So I've been using a fluid storage cell, nice and simple, and just partitioning the storage cell so that we can work through all of our fusion products. So we'll start with americium, and we know that we need to be able to have americium, which is here, which requires lutetium, which we'll put down here because it's also a product itself, and it also requires chrome. Just want to have it organized. So americium, chrome, and lutetium. Now, lutetium is silicon and lanthanum. So we'll just place these two here. Liquid silicon, liquid lanthanum. Tritanium is titanium and geranium. And I remember we already have geranium. So we'll go tritanium and titanium. And then darmstadium, which is ruthenium and arsenic. So that's 3 products. And done. And now we have our fluid cell partitioned. So I can put this back into our AE2 system with our other fluid drive, which is being used for helium plasma only. So for the sake of easier auto crafting, I'll use a quadruple input hatch, place a dual interface on the top of it so we can have it request patterns and send fluids into there. And then we'll just need to configure our output hatches and lock them to make sure that we don't have the outsides filling with other fluids, like we've done on here where we just lock them to hydrogen gas. Okay, they're all wired up. Let's set some solidification recipes for these 4 so that we can get them into ingot form. Tritanium, darmstadium, and americium. And we can see that the system runs flawlessly, really. All we need is the input recipes and time. And time is certainly something that we have. It's Gregtech after all. There's the ingot. And new materials we have made. We've made ourselves 320 tritanium, which means the next step is the Sterilised Cleanroom. And to make the Sterilised Cleanroom, we need to make a normal cleanroom, similar to our other one, but replace these filter casings with sterilizing filter casings. And these are much more expensive. 2 ZPM components, the tritanium frame box, Naquata alloy, a blacklight which requires europium and a bunch of tungsten carbide, lots of PBI. This is expensive. We're not going to be able to make a clean room this size with the sterilizing casings yet. That's in future. We're going to start with a 7x7 clean room, which requires 48 sterilizing filter casings. And we can see, it takes a lot of europium. Only 48 circuits, which is nice. There's where it mostly comes from, that fine europium wire. Over 1 million hydrogen. Yeah, not bad. Let's get that going. Oh my god. And this is probably the most I've ever seen our battery start draining. 1.1 million EU per tick. If we were to run out of power now, we actually wouldn't even be able to gain it back. We don't generate enough power. And the fix here is simple. Let's just make 6 UV rotor holders. Well, we've got our 6 UV rotor holders. Let's replace the rotors and see how much power we get. Well, the moment of truth has finally come. Time to find out what a maximum large plasma turbine can get. 367,000 per turbine. A little scribbling math shows that we have actually doubled our power. Not quite, of course. Almost doubled the power, but functionally twice the amount of power, which is nice. Many hours of crafting later, we finally have our filter casings. And now we have our funny purple clean room. So there's only one use for the funny pink room, and that is sterilized growth medium. So let's start working on that. Sterilized growth medium first takes raw growth medium, which takes these 4 dusts and mutagen. We're not going to worry about that right now. what we're going to work on is our mincemeat production. Mincemeat has two uses in this chain. It's used to make the raw growth medium, and it's also used to make collagen for gelatin. And that requires bone meal. And we can make bone meal by packaging 9 tiny piles of bone meal into 1 regular bone meal. And tiny piles are a result of maceration of fish, which gets us mincemeat. First thing is the fisher, and this costs string. Every single cast costs 1 string. There's only one way to make string, and we need to make polycaprolactam. So let's get to working on caprolactam. So we've got everything set up for our caprolactam dust production. Let's give it a go. All we have to do is plug this in and it all should turn on. There's 1, this is our cyclohexane production. There's 2, this is our nitric oxide and nitric acid production. Nitrosyl chloride, easy. There's cyclohexane, and now we have our silly little dust. And now we have our caprolactam. Let's just see what we get. I can't remember. And the diluted sulfuric acid just gets sent to a distillation tower. Now our caprolactam needs to be automatically filtered into a blast furnace. So we'll store that straight into the network. Doesn't matter what circuit conditions, so we'll just send it straight into the blast furnace. It's very fast. So let's increase that up a little bit. There we go, already done. And now with caprolactam bars, all we have to do is wire mill them for string. And being wire milled, 4 recipes in 1 second. And now we see we have thousands of string. That's a pretty robust setup, I'm not going to lie. Now we can set up the fisher. So we have our fishing setup as well, it's working. It might not look it and they make no noise and have no progress bar, but they are definitely fishing things up every 200 ticks, which I think around 10 seconds. So I'm using 4 of them just because I know we're going to need a lot of SGM. And now we're going to process the fish that we've just caught in our macerator to make mincemeat. So we've got a 50% chance of getting 2 pieces of mincemeat, and we will always get a tiny pile of bone meal. We'll just auto-process these away. So now we have mincemeat on passive. And now we've set up a packager to automatically turn our tiny piles of bone meal into the full bone meal, which is going to be used with mincemeat and sulfuric acid to make collagen in the sterile clean room. Next up on the chopping block is gelatin mixture, which is going to take phosphoric acid and collagen. We've just set up mincemeat and bone meal, so we'll be able to make this quite quickly. But the other thing is phosphoric acid. We have a spare large chemical reactor just sitting around. This isn't going to be too difficult, just phosphor, oxygen, and water. And phosphoric acid is used for nothing except gelatin mixture. And phosphoric acid is already done. It was simple as that. So we're in the clean room now, and we need to make our collagen, which is a chemical reactor. All right, I think we're going to be able to make this work. So collagen, let's just favorite all the things we need. In here, we'll need to pull mincemeat and bone meal. And up the top, we'll need to pull sulfuric acid. And because we're getting diluted sulfuric acid, we'll need to set this to import with manual IO filtered and fluid auto output. And then conveyor for import. And that should make collagen. And then we'll export collagen on a filter. So it'll go straight into the mixer. And in this mixer, we're going to import phosphoric acid. Phosphoric acid. And we'll place an infinite water cover. Where did that go? There it is. So we can place that on the top. So this will now fill with water. We'll pump in the phosphoric acid and then gelatin mixture from the collagen there, already being made. Then we can auto output our gelatin mixture into a centrifuge, and we'll get our gelatin dust and our phosphor. So we need to make a centrifuge. We place a centrifuge, that's going to separate out phosphorus and gelatin, and then gelatin needs to go into an autoclave with distilled water. So we'll auto output that. No, we're going to need 2 filter. Yeah, okay. So we'll actually filter out phosphorus dust. I have to get it through here. Phosphorus dust is going to be exported out the bottom. Gelatin dust out the side. Gelatin dust needs an autoclave with distilled water to make agar. So the autoclave is going to accept in the gelatin. We need to give it distilled water with a pump for import. And then that will make us agar. And since we already have most of these, that is all the dusts for raw growth medium taken care of. Next step is mutagen. So the next part of the equation we're going to tackle is mutagen. And mutagen starts outside the clean room with biomass. We need to make biomass, which requires biochaff. Funnily enough, bacteria also requires biochaff. So we need to make plant balls, and plant balls start in the compressor, and we need to grow something. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take the saplings, if I can find them, from our benzene production and just compress them into plant balls, and that can be done outside the clean room, so we'll do that outside. Then we'll pulverize them into biochaff, and then we'll brew biochaff into biomass and bacteria, and we'll do both of these inside the clean room just for symmetry. So one interface supplying biochaff, conveyor on both to import, top one to import our distilled water, and then the bottom brewery will have our infinite water cover on it. And now with biomass and bacteria made, we need to make bacterial sludge, which is in a chemical reactor. Pipes into the top for the sludge, and then this will automatically make us bacterial sludge. We'll then auto output bacterial sludge to the side, where we'll have a brewer interface on the top, and this is where we actually get a choice. Bacterial sludge has 3 different recipes here, and theoretically, a few are better than the others. I believe we already make uranium-238 in abundance, so I think what we'll do is we'll request uranium-238. This is going to brew our bacterial sludge into enriched bacterial sludge, and then we just need a distillery, circuit 1, to make mutagen. In the distillery on circuit 1, we will get our mutagen. And mutagen isn't used for anything else except for our raw crystal chips again, but we're using europium. It's a bit easier to make than all of this mutagen process, and we get a guaranteed raw crystal chip back, and it doesn't actually reduce the time at all, as you can see. It's 600 seconds no matter what. Okay, so now we can actually place the mixer that is going to make our raw growth medium, and then all we need to do is sterilize it in a fluid heater. Sterilized growth medium has 2 uses. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to bucket it. Or we're going to store it in the clean room, actually. We're not going to bucket it. We're going to store it because it's used to make stem cells, which produces some bacterial sludge as a byproduct. Or we use it to make the Wetware life support boards or the neuroprocessing units, but those take stem cells as well. We're getting stuck in the weeds here. Raw growth medium is the next step. Actually, we'll need a way to re-import our bacterial sludge that we get as a byproduct, so we'll request it there. So we'll have our mutagen auto output into the mixer. We'll then have an interface requesting all of the materials. So mincemeat, I could actually place it, that'd be handy. Agar, salt, and calcium. And we'll need to make these all 4, because that's what the recipe calls for. We'll place a robot arm as our import filter, and we'll need to keep exact. Supply exact or keep exact doesn't really matter here. And now once this is all plugged in, this is going to produce our raw growth medium. Place our fluid heater, circuit 1 to get sterilized growth medium. So we'll output our sterilized growth medium into an aluminium drum. Definitely the most sterile environment on the planet. So I do now believe we have everything set up for our sterilized growth medium. Around the side we have our compressors and macerators, and I'm gonna silence that because that's loud as. I think I'll muffle all these machines. I've turned off the clean room just so I could make sure everything was ready to go before we started. And now we should just let this decontaminate and watch our sterilized growth medium fill up. Everything's all wired in nice and neat. I think we went overboard on the clean room size, but I just didn't want to have to deal with anything going wrong. I'm not sure what other processes require the Sterilized Cleanroom. All I know is that Sterilized Growth Medium is required. Oh, it didn't take a lot of searching to find out that we actually need to have a circuit assembler inside the Sterile Cleanroom to make our data modules. Righty, there we go, and there's all 4 of the dusts ready. Now we just need to wait on 30 more cycles of mutagen, I believe. 30 more cycles of this chemical reactor. Alright, I'll be back when we have some SGM. A few teething problems later, and we actually have our sterilized growth medium. And the quest. Next step, let's see if we can craft some stem cells. Looks all good to me. Yep, and there's the chemical reactor slaving away for our benefits. And we've got our stem cells now. Onto the master circuit board. So the master circuit board looks to be just as easy as all the other boards, except for the Wetware life support board, which is horrible. Alright, and let's also just make sure we can craft the neuroprocessing unit, which again is made in a circuit assembler, but this time at ZPM. So we've been waiting for a little bit, and now we finally have enough to make the master circuit board. Let's do it. Doesn't actually look too expensive out of all the other circuit boards we've been making, especially because this makes what, 16 at a time, 16 Wetware boards at a time. Little bit of waiting, but we've got our master circuit board now. And now the next step up, the neuroprocessing unit. Another really long step, more SGM. Good thing we've got this on passive. And 1 neuroprocessing unit. Alright. Let's craft our circuits then. Alright, LUV circuit. Again, these are all things that we can do. This is not a struggle at all. Can we make that? Alright, we can't make that yet. Alright, we need to be able to make yttrium, barium, cuprate, fine wire. There we are. Not an issue. ZPM circuits. Yttrium, barium, cuprate, RAM. Master circuit board. Again, not too difficult now that we can make these. The UV circuit. Now this one's going to take research, I believe. So we need to make the LUV first. Wetware processor. And Wetware assembly. Okay, so let's start researching our final UV circuit. And the final UV circuit. All done and dusted. So that pretty much rounds off the second last chapter of the game. We finally have completed the 0-point module age, and we finally get to move on to the final page. This page is probably worth its own episode, so I think for today, this is where we'll wrap up. We've got our Fusion Reactor Mark II, we've got our silly pink clean room, we did SGM, or at least the gimped version of SGM for now, managed to get all of our funky new circuits, and upgrade our power yet again.